Toya Talks. Council estate to corporate space. First gen Nigerian setting the pace. From Goldman Sachs to PwC. Building legacies for all to see. Dyslexia couldn't stop this flow. Law degree, just watch me grow. Masters of the game we show. Every sister how to own their throne. TOIA, let me show you how to navigate and elevate, that's what we do. Black Queen, energy growing.
You don't have to live with anxiety because of the weird expectations of others. Let yourself be human instead of forcing yourself to be a machine. Your heart, nervous system, and adrenal glands will thank you. And that was posted on Instagram by Corey Allen. His handle is at Hey Corey Allen. Hey everyone. Listen, I am stressed today. The devil is a liar. A big, fat, dirty, ugly liar. Because I'm telling you right now, everything I have done has been to elevate the podcast. So I'm hoping that you've heard the intro and everything else, because I have a new editing software, Logic Pro. And honey, you all know that I don't have anyone that does my editing. I do my recording, editing, mixing, mastering. Is that a thing? Chop it, slice it, put it together myself. And also I want to thank Nomadic Star for the Toy Talks podcast intro. Yeah, it's the official intro of the Toy Talks podcast. And for a really long time, I didn't actually think I would do an intro. In fact, I would go as far as saying I wasn't comfortable with intros because I think I was still trying to figure out the podcast. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to be like everyone else. So I'd always open up with a quote. But I've gotten to a point where I think I've solidified the podcast, what it stands for. And the podcast itself has achieved so much. And a lot of you listen. And over the last year, I've learned a lot. I've learned that even though I was recording, maybe once a month, if that, over the last year, you guys have still stayed listening. You guys have re-listened, shared the podcast. And I think that is testament to the fact that this podcast is not only wanted, but it's needed because it's being used and utilized. And, you know, I had a conversation with myself. I was like, you know what? I want to elevate the podcast a little. I want to get a new mic. I want the sound to be crisp AF. I don't want to be fidgeting around with the dials on the laptop. I just want to be able to come here and talk. And I feel like the last episode, I enjoyed it because I basically did a format that was natural to me. And the format, the planning, the treatment, there's a lot of work that goes into the episode. So for me, I needed to just kind of embrace the evolution of the podcast and what it's become, what it can become, how it can grow. And more importantly, just return to the essence of podcasting. And for me, it's drawing from life's experiences to teach, guide, and elevate Black women in the world of work to enable us to highlight the path of our success. I also got comfortable with a couple of things. You know, when as Black women, we toot our own horn, we're made to feel like we shouldn't, number one. And number two, we're called arrogant. We're called all these things that are so negative. But when a white person toots their own horn, it's that person kind of acknowledging their successes. And I think as Black women, we don't do enough of that. And I have to get comfortable with saying certain things because it doesn't mean that I'm limiting myself. I am a successful Black woman. And I have so much more to learn and so much growth to grow and so many things that I want to do. But I need to be able to comfortably sit and say, I am a successful Black woman. But it's not, I don't just stop at that. Like, I want more. I want to be able to add to my success. I want my success to evolve. And part of that evolution is through the podcast, it's through teaching, it's through the website. That being said, I just want to thank you all for your patience. I want to thank you all to those who I featured in your wrap-ups on Spotify, because honestly, I think that I was just surprised. I wasn't expecting to do numbers on the wrap up, or I wasn't expecting to feature in people's like top 5. I really, because you see, when I sit here and talk, there's the expectation only is that you learn something. That is the expectation I come in here with. And you know, me and my dyslexia and my undiagnosed ADHD, sometimes I'll be thinking like, is anybody listening? Sometimes I'm like, girl, do people get your personality? Like, are people really receiving what you're saying? And the numbers do not lie. So I'm holding on to that. So let's just get into the meat, potatoes, the chicken, the rice, the stew of this podcast. So I think I'm calling this episode Course Correct. I think. And you know what? Even if I don't, at this very moment, that's what I think I'm going to call it. How about that? Also, I upgraded my microphone. I have a Shure mic, and big up to Milena Sanchez, who is a podcaster as well. And she spoke about this mic, and it is designed for podcasters. And let me tell you, my all over. Oh God, you see, I paused it. Yep. I could just touch it and mute the mic, by the way. But anyway, I think it's adding to the clarity of the episode. So I'm very excited. I've updated a few things. I've got an intro, updated the software, updated my microphone, and I'm really just here giving you podcast episodes. I am leaning to doing once a week again, but let's just work our way to it. Okay, you're definitely going to get more than one episode a month, but I think we need to work our way back up to once a week. Is that a deal? Because I think that could work for both of us. Right. Education, education, education. Those were the famous words of Tony Blair. I grew up in the Blair era. I grew up in the Labour era. Way back when. I remember my first day at university. What am I talking about? Secondary school, honey. Oh, god damn. I remember my first day at secondary school. And we had a welcome assembly, and I was with my dad, right? And then we had a head teacher. His name was Mr. Shipley. The secondary school I attended was Salisbury. It was one of the secondary schools. Now, just because I say it was one doesn't mean that I got kicked out of it. I had issues with certain situations that transpired, and I had to move during my GCSEs. But that is an episode for another day. But for the purposes of what we're discussing, I went to Salisbury in... Is it Edmonton, Lower Edmonton? Is that what they're calling it? And Mr. Shipley said, he was talking about all the expectation, what they expect from us, this, that, and the third. And he said, education, education, education. He made us all repeat it. My dad was just looking at me. Did you repeat it? Yes, Daddy. Say it again. Education. When he says it, you say it loud. So, yesterday, something really strange happened. But it actually became the foundation of this episode. I mind my own business. I do not live in London anymore. I am a Tottenham woman, a Tottenham babe, born and raised. I left Tottenham about 2 years ago, and now I've moved outside London. And that has its challenges. We can get into that in future episodes. But I think, at the time... it was after the pandemic. Kay and I had decided we needed more space. We wanted a house as opposed to a flat. And also, we were discussing possibly having a family. So it made sense that we would want a bigger space. And I always said that I wanted my child to have a garden. I didn't grow up with that. So I wanted to be able to do that. So we moved outside London. Now, moving outside London it has its pros and its cons. But more importantly, I wanted access to education for a possible child, and I do have a daughter now. So, and also we just wanted more space. We wanted more bang for our buck. I will tell you, I don't know how it is now, but the house prices outside London and what you can get versus what you could get in London, you can't even compare it. Like, our house is big, right? And a house this size in London is way over £1 million. And honey, I'm successful, but a million here, a million there. I don't have a million where. Sorry. I don't. I have to be honest. And also as well, if I had $1 million, would I feel comfortable spending £1 million on a house and then find money to furnish that £1 million house. But the fact is, £1 million in the buying a property in the UK is like a shoebox. It's in comparison to outside London. Anyway, I say this to say, where I live, Black people we're here in the majority. We're successful. We're doing really well, and it's actually really nice to see and being in and amongst Black people who are doing really, like, relatively quite well. And we are the majority in our current community where we live here, and it's lovely and it's nice seeing the kids play in the summer. It's nice. Now, one thing about me is that I am very guarded, especially since moving to Kent, and guarded just trying to figure out my environment, my neighbours and things like that. I'm not I'm polite, but I'm not like, we don't do the over familiar thing. I'm not collecting your packages if the postman knocks on my door and says you're not in. I'm not doing that. I don't know you like that. Like, pleasantries, good morning, how are you? You know them things there, but nothing over familiar. Now, my next door neighbours, I've got two neighbours. To my left, we have a Black family. To our right, we have, I think they are Chinese. And then the rest of my road, we're all Black, right? But my neighbour, I don't really know her very well. We have pleasantries and stuff, and it's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've had a couple of cross words before, that like, some of us, we're bringing our Nigerian mentality outside London, and some of us are trying to tell others we don't do that here. You know what I mean? Anyway, so my next neighbours, they're cool, but I don't really know them like that. So yesterday, my neighbour's daughter, my neighbour's got two children, but her daughter knocked on our door. And Kay is currently abroad for work. And he, like, every few months he goes away for work, right? Because his company, the head office, is not here in the UK, it's abroad. So periodically Kay will go abroad. So I will be with the baby. I work from home predominantly. So that, it's only for a few days, maybe about 3-4 days. And yesterday happened to be one of those days where Kay was away. My daughter was in nursery and I was upstairs sorting out my laptop and sorting and practicing editing for the podcast and working from home. And I don't have much of a lunch, so I just decided, like, I'm going to sort out my software for my podcast. So there was a knock at the door. No, there was the doorbell went. So I went downstairs, opened the door. It's my neighbour's daughter. She's 16 years old. And she says, listen, my mum's not home. And I just want to know if I can wait in your house. Now, let me tell you, I grew up in a generation where that was normal. I would forget my key. I could go to my neighbours. If my mum's not in, I could go to my neighbour and say, can I use your toilet? I grew up in that. I grew up where community was a real community. This generation is very different, but the teenagers these days are very different too. Like, society as a whole has changed since I grew up. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. Like, life is so different, like, completely. The community protected your child as if it was their own. This is not the society we live in. Kids knew they were kids, and kids were allowed to be children, and kids were allowed to be kids, children were allowed to be children. But this is completely a 360 to the society in which we currently live in. So I said to her, I don't actually feel comfortable with you coming in my house. Have you? And I said, have you asked your mum? And she goes, no. And I said, yeah, I don't really feel comfortable. And she goes, oh, no, I understand. It's fine. So I was like, all right, cool. My heart just sank. My heart sank because it was so opposite to what would come naturally to me, would be to say yes. But I was doing a risk assessment, and I thought, I don't know this young girl. I don't know, she could just stab me in my house. If my daughter was here, it would be an absolute no. I would not be sitting here feeling bad or contemplating the possibility. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel comfortable with my decision making right now because I know this is not right. It's cold outside, but I don't feel comfortable. What am I going to do? So I call my good girlfriend, my good friend, she's just amazing. Like, I adore Bimpe, and I called her. So I called my girlfriend. And when I say my girlfriend, I mean my friend, right? Because some of y'all in this generation is just mad. Anyway, so I call my friend Bimpe and I'm like, Bimpe, this is the situation. What should I do? And she was like, well, she needs to call her mum and let her mum know. And if her mum's okay with it, then I think it would be okay. So I was like, why is she putting me in this position? I don't like this. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I don't want any problems with my neighbour. If I leave her out there, I'm a horrible person. If I take her in, you know, and her mum's not comfortable with it, I'm a problem. Like, I just don't like this shit. So my friend was like, no, Toy, that's what I'll do. So then I call my husband. So I said, Kay, this is the situation. Kay was like, you know what? I would let her in. I was like, yeah, but Kay, you're not here. It's me. I was like, okay, I've heard what you and Bim have to say. Let me think. And what came to my head was, number one, my natural instinct is just to let her in my home. Why wouldn't I? She's a young girl. It's cold outside. I've done the risk assessment. What is the worst that can happen? And if that worst means that she's not in the cold, I'll just have to deal with it. My daughter's not here, but what I am going to do is get her to call her mum. So I opened the door. So this was like 5 minutes, by the way, since she had pressed my doorbell. So then I'd opened the door and I said, hi. And she was like, hi. And she was just huddled in the corner of the door, that obviously of her front door. I said, please, can you ring your mum and tell her that you're going to be in my house? And she goes, okay. So she called her mum, but she had her earpiece on. So earpiece on, so I couldn't hear the mum's response. She goes, yeah, my mum said it's fine. So I thought, hang on a minute, I've got my neighbour's number, because I remember something had happened around here and I had taken her number. So I call her and I said, hi, it's Toya from next door. She goes, hi, Toya. I said, listen, I'm going to let your daughter in my house. Is that okay with you? She goes, yeah, it's fine. Honestly, like, I have no problem with that. I was like, whereabouts are you? So she tells me where she is. She's actually not that far away. I was like, okay, cool. As long as you're comfortable, I just wanted to make sure, of course, she can come. Anyway, let her in my house, offer her a drink. She doesn't want a drink. She sits in the living room. She's fine, right? So then I go upstairs, like log off my computers, and then I come downstairs, and I've always got stuff to do anyway. So I folded the laundry, put out some snacks for my daughter for when I'd have to go and pick her up. And I kept checking in on her. She seemed fine. And I said to her, I said, listen, I don't want you to think that my initial reaction of saying no was because I'm a bad person, because I don't actually think I'm a bad person. I'm a cautious person. And nowadays, especially as an adult, we have to be careful. And I don't ever want to kind of step on your mum's toes or put myself in a situation where, you know, where you might be offended. Maybe I looked at you the wrong way. I just don't want no aggro. And she was like, I completely understand. You know, it's just really cold. If it was warm, maybe I probably wouldn't have looked. It's just really cold. I said, I know. And that's not the issue. I just want you to know that I wanted you to come in, but without speaking to your mum, I just wouldn't be comfortable with that situation. And she was like, I completely get it. And she's like, I'm just so grateful. Like, every time I see you, you're always really nice to me, and you always acknowledge me, you always see me. So I know that you're not a bad person, and I don't see your initial reaction as anything than just a person that is just cautious and trying to assess a situation. I was like, exactly. Anyway, I say all this to say the next part, but this is the society we're living in now. We're so untrusting. And I think it's important to be cautious because, listen, we're living in a society now where anything goes. And unfortunately, the society we live in has removed the ability for children to just be children. So you have kids who are 8, 9, 10 years old and they're having children. They know about sex. They're having... they're being told, oh, you know, if you're not sure about your sexuality, you can have puberty blockers. Well, that is illegal now, but you know what I mean? Like, we're living in a society that's infiltrating the ability for children to be children. And in a changing society like this, I never want to put myself in a situation whereby I'm having to explain a decision that came from a good place, right? So I got talking to her, and I said to her, listen, how old are you? She's like, 16. So I said, well, you must be doing your A-levels. And she said, yes. And I said, oh, okay. How are you finding it? She goes, well, I'm really worried. I was like, why? And she's like, I can't get any work experience. And if I don't get any work experience, I'm not going to get a job. She goes, I'm not confident. I don't know what to do. And I've got my A-levels coming up and I'm really stressed out. I looked at her and I was like, how old are you? She said 16. I said, first and foremost, I want you to know that at 16 years old, you shouldn't be thinking about how many work experience opportunities you need to get a job. Education is really important. It's the bedrock of the job you're going to get. That's first and foremost. And I'm not saying experience is not needed. What I am saying is that you're 16 years old and you need to enjoy being 16 years old. Because there's going to come a point where you're going to have bills in your name and you're going to have to pay those bills. There's going to come a point where you've got to pay a mortgage, you've got to pay rent, you've got to do all these things. And you're going to look back and think, I robbed myself of being a child or being a teenager because I was worried about being an adult. And she started laughing. She said, I never really looked at it like that. I said, well, also as well, you said you're not confident. She says, no. I said, you are. She goes, what do you mean? I said, you knocked on my door. I said, do you know the level of confidence it takes to knock on someone's door? She goes, yeah, but I rang my friends before I knocked on your door because I needed a pep talk. I says, okay, but however you had to prepare to knock on the door, the confidence to knock on someone's door and ask there is a confidence in that. I said, I think you are confident. You look at me directly in my eyes when we talk. We're talking now. And you conduct yourself in a way that is not only respectful, but you're such a humble young lady. And that confidence that you think you don't have, it's the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that build confidence. Because people think confidence is being able to take a microphone and stand in the middle of a stage and sing a really or attempt to sing or draw attention to themselves. That's not confidence. That's akin to attention seeking, but that's not confidence. Real confidence comes from within. Real confidence comes from accepting who you are and being comfortable with who you are and knowing who you are. I says, if you are ever thinking that you may not be confident, try small little quick wins in day-to-day life that build confidence. She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, for instance, your ability to be able to strike a conversation with somebody. So, for example, a topic you're not comfortable with. There is a confidence in being able to acknowledge you may not know a lot about a topic, but having the confidence to seek the information through conversation. Those are everyday quick wins that build confidence. And what will happen is when you get into an interview, 50% is education mixed with a bit of experience, but the other 50% is confidence. What they're not teaching young people today is how to hold a conversation, how to talk. And you are a black girl and you're going to be a black woman. And you need to know that mediocrity does not apply. Your white counterparts do not have to try or do not need to have the level of education you'll need to get through the door. They can be mediocre because white privilege is a passport for white people in white dominated industries. Do you understand? She said, I do. I said, confidence is a superpower. And you have to understand and know what real confidence is. Because I'm telling you, likability factor plays a part as to whether somebody gets a job or not. So while you're here worrying about getting work experience, you need to be laying the foundation. Education, confidence, working on your self-doubt, working on addressing imposter syndrome. You need to work on how you articulate yourself, how you conversate, how you present yourself. So how do you talk? Do you talk with your hands? Being able to know how your physical, how you communicate, your non-verbal communication. Those are the things that you need to know. You need to be self-aware. And they don't teach you this. But what they do is they stress you out at 16 when you should be concentrating on your education and enjoying being a teenager. She said to me, I have never ever looked at my life like that. And I've spent so long just being stressed about interviews and, can I get an interview work experience? But actually I'm realizing that it's okay for me to worry about it, but it can't consume me because I've got other things that I need to work on to be able to be in those interviews and get the job. I said exactly that. So she asked me what I did for a living. I said I'm a senior commercial contract manager. She asked me where I worked. I told her where I work. She was like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm international, baby. And she just looked at me and she was like, wow. I said, representation matters. So now you know somebody who looks like you, working in an industry that you're interested in, working for an international company, and I'm also dyslexic. And she was like, pardon? I said, I'm also dyslexic and I have undiagnosed ADHD and I work hard, I'm dedicated, I'm educated, and I'm confident in who I am. And whilst that's taken me years to get to, I'm giving you the blueprint now. You can be better than me. You have to be better than me. And she was so happy, like the smile on her face. And then her mum knocked on the door and she was like, Mum, I've just had the most profound conversation. I can't believe that the reason why I was locked outside was so that I could have this conversation. And I was like, listen, any time you need advice or, you want to ask me a question, knock on my door. And she was like, I definitely will do that. And I realized that was the ancestors that put me in that situation. And I also recognized that Toya Talks is a part of who I am. And I'm going to continue to use my platform in any which way the ancestors direct me to. Also, the reason I'm sharing that with you is, as Black women, I feel as though we are so consumed because we're so consumed with kind of our careers and being better and money and, position and growing and success. Some of us are confused about what direction to go. Maybe you've been in an industry that you hate or you've picked the wrong courses and now you've been pigeonholed because of what you've studied. And I think it's really important that all the learning lessons we pass down to the younger generation, that's number one. And number two, representation matters. And actually being in certain spaces is a gift, not only to the younger generation, it's a gift to your younger self. I would have never believed in my entire life that I would be in a situation whereby I'd be sitting here telling you my credit score is 925, especially when my credit score when I was in my 20s was 100. I swear, I kid you not. And I don't know, like, my relationship with money is so much better. Just even where I am in my life, I never thought that I would be able to do it. I never thought that I would have success. I thought I would just be mediocre, honestly. And that comes from not seeing people that look like me in certain positions, but also I just found education and I found life just really, really hard, even more so when my dad died. And being able to continuously navigate as a Black woman and learn and grow, I'm just so grateful for the foundation of my education. I had a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and actually I wouldn't even call it a falling out, but it was just a heated discussion because she had basically communicated information on social media that education, I can't remember word for word, but effectively what she said is education doesn't mean anything unless you're a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever she said. And I was pissed off. I was actually I was fucked off by that. Number one, I'm not a lawyer. I'm non-practicing. You guys know my educational background. I've got my law degree. I went to law school. I've got a master's in law. I've got my level 4 SIPs. I have some other things that I will be discussing that I've achieved. I've worked really, really hard, and I'm a senior commercial contract manager. You know, I've worked really hard to get to where I am. And education is important, especially if you're black. Don't ever think mediocrity will get you an interview. It doesn't. You know what mediocrity does? Mediocrity has people sitting in front of you who have no understanding of the job in senior positions telling you what to do. That's mediocrity. You can't be mediocre. You have to aspire for more, especially as a black woman where we're the most disrespected, the least represented. If they were to do an investigation on salary comparison based on race, we would be, as black women, at the bottom of those statistics, especially because as black women, we don't know our value because society tells us we're not valued at all. And I'd like to think that the exception are those who fully tap into the Toy Talks podcast, for one, but number two, understand how to negotiate and all those things. But the reality is we didn't come into our careers knowing all these things. Do you understand? It's only as time's gone on that we have safe spaces or you share information and your knowledge starts to grow. My education has got me to where I am. And I'm speaking to you as somebody who has a learning difficulty. So it's not even like education was easy to me. It was traumatic for me. I found education mentally taxing and mentally draining. But I'm going to say something. I tend to find that those people who have a negative view about education or think that you can do it without, like, education doesn't mean anything. It's a bunch of bullshit. Education is fundamental. And education doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to go to university. It means that you are a subject matter expert and you are studying up. You've got to be in a continuous state of education, learning and growth. One of my friends, he used to be a paint and decorator, and then he became like an odd job man. And then I remember he said to me that, you know, he wants to become a plumber. And he studied his arse off to become a plumber. He is a millionaire. He owns a massive plumbing company. And do you know what he says to me? He says, Toya, if you're not willing to educate yourself and access education on any level, you're always going to be mediocre. He's a millionaire. I didn't even know he was a millionaire. A friend of a friend has told me he's a millionaire. He talks to me. He doesn't tell me all these things. I know he runs this massive, big plumbing company, but I didn't know he was a fucking millionaire. But now it makes sense. It makes sense now. My man is always abroad. I was like, have you got a little sweet thing, international? No, honey. My man is enjoying the fruits of his labor. I tend to find that people who have a negative view about education, either number one, they dropped out of education. Two, they picked the wrong course, like one of these Mickey Mouse courses, like geography. Yes, it's a fucking Mickey Mouse course. It's Mickey Mouse. What are you doing with that geography? I'm not being rude, but what are you doing? How is your employability related to that geography? Maybe I'm ignorant. Educate me then. Or some people pick the wrong course and have been unable to obtain work. So now they have a negative view about education. Or maybe they have a negative view about education because actually they're incapable of educating themselves because they think they know better than everyone else. But that will keep you in the same position forever. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be able to course correct. And that course correction is understand, actually, you know what? This isn't for me. And being able to say, right, you know what, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to commit myself and see it through. There's so many people that pick things up and don't see things through. And don't get me wrong, the older you get, the harder education becomes. I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard, especially when you have a family, you've got other commitments. Education becomes hard because now you're having to switch off and focus on something when you've got all these tabs opening in your head. That's why I say when you're younger, do your education as much as possible. When you're older, build on the education that you did when you were younger, and continuously be in a state of growth. I know there's going to be a load of people that's not going to particularly like what I've just said. I actually don't give a fuck. I'm not here to please you. I'm not here for you. I'm here to create a safe space and to be open and honest, because I've gone through the education system, okay? And my dyslexia wasn't diagnosed until I was 21. Do you know what the fuck I went through in education to get to this space? Do you know what I still go through being in a continuous state of education? It's fucking hard, okay? But I know I like nice things. I know I like money. I know that I like to create a life for myself or my family. I also know that I like to develop as a person. I want to be at the top of my game. And I have eyes on directorship. I want to be a director in, my field. So it comes with sacrifice, and it comes with building, and it comes with understanding the importance of the education that I need to make sure I continuously obtain to get to where I want to be. I'm going to put this out there. Please study courses where you're able to pivot, because what you study at 16 and what you believe you want to be at 16 is not what you want to be when you're 18, and may not be what you want to be when you're 25. Things change, people grow, and perspective changes. You need to be able to pivot. When I studied law, it's probably one of the best courses I studied, and I'll tell you why. At the time of picking law, I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I soon realized in law school, so after my degree, going to law school, and I didn't go into law school straight away. I think it was like 3 years, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 years after I graduated. So I graduated in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I went to law school in 2010. So 4 years after, so that 4 years, I was getting my work experience. I was working in different roles. I was, I was in retail as well. And then I joined an agency. I worked for Hackney Council. I've worked for so many places before. Like, honestly, I was doing admin. I was working so many places to get the work experience, because it wasn't easy. Like, how was I going to afford law school? My dad literally paid for my law school, and I had to pay him back. In law school, you guys know the story. I was cleaning toilets, cleaning offices, just to be able to fund my eating, my feeding, my day-to-day. And then I had to pay my dad back, because why should he have to fork out the money for my education when it is not only just for me, but actually, he was out of pocket. I definitely had to. And I can never repay my dad for the support he gave me. Just the support and the overall encouragement and the determination that he had in ensuring that I had the best education that I possibly could get. Okay. And I think education is also important because it is your backup plan. If those of you who know my story, I was meant to be an African entertainment TV presenter, and for all intents and purposes, it was going in that direction. And when my dad died, life changed, honey. Life changed, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be in no one's TV screen. I'm depressed. I can't cope. At least I was able to fall back on my education. And now, how many years later, just over almost 10 years later, actually, I'm in my career, and I'm not sitting here telling you I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm just telling you I'm content. And I have forged a way for myself to be able to pivot if I want to. And I think this is what they don't teach, and this is what we don't talk about enough. Like doing courses where you can course correct if you want to and move into a different field. You can pivot. It's important because you change and you grow. Like when I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, I had 6 months left on my training contract. 6 months. I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I have never met a happy lawyer. That's what I used to tell my dad. And my dad was a lawyer, right? Maybe you guys don't know. He was an accountant for like 25 years. And then he left the profession, was made redundant, retrained as a lawyer, became partner at a law firm. So, and my dad was, when he retrained, my dad was like in his late 50s. So no one has an excuse here, by the way, yeah? But the point is, when I made the decision that I didn't want to be a lawyer, I was like, okay, what the fuck am I going to do? And that was when my tutor at the time was like, Toya, you're good at contracts. Like, there's a natural flair here. There's a natural ability that comes very natural. You need to look into it. And here I am today. I've pivoted so many times to get to where I am now. So for those of you who do not believe in education, it's either because you can't access it, it's either because you picked a course that doesn't make sense, it may be because you did a Mickey Mouse course and now you're stuck. It may be also because you lacked the discipline to finish it. It may also be your negative view on education may also be that maybe you're just not in a space where you can appreciate what the fruits of the sacrifice and labor education can give you. And that's the truth. So whoever that offends, that's up to you. But I'm here to set an example, be the example of where education is important, because education isn't just about university. It isn't just about masters. It's about, skilling up. It's about having a growth mindset. It's about believing in your ability to learn and do better. It's about committing to understanding that mediocrity does not apply to you. That's what education is about. So, talking about education. So, I think it was like a week or two ago, President Biden, who is the current president of the United States, pardoned his son he was on federal charges. I think fraud, gun, President Biden's son is a naughty boy. And there was uproar. And I know that uproar was because during President Biden's son's trial, Biden had said, he would not pardon him. And obviously, fast forward now where Biden's son went through the judicial process in the States and has been found guilty awaiting sentencing. Biden's been like, you know what, I'm pardoning my son. And the media are in uproar, and I fucking don't understand. Biden was really clear. My son did not get a fair trial. He was on trial for being my son. And there is no way that I can allow my son to be punished because his father is president just to prove a point. So I'm pardoning him. And my question to everybody that I post on social media is, if your father is the most powerful man in the world and doesn't use his power to pardon you, what use is the dad? What? Hello? So he should watch his son go to prison when he could pardon. Can you just stop this thing? Everyone's talking about second chances. Biden is giving his son a second chance. Everybody should relax. But this is what I'm saying about education. Can you see? Education gives you an elevated understanding. My man, listen, he's a educated politician is what Biden is. Biden was like, y'all, you want to take my son to trial? Fine. What do you want him to say? Oh, yes, I'm definitely going to pardon my son. As far as he was concerned, at the time in which he said he would pardon his son, Biden believed that he'd be running for re-election. So clearly he is going to say what he said. And also maybe at the back of his mind, he thought that there would be some type of a fair trial. But there wasn't. And it was in his gift to do. So I personally don't understand. And the crazy thing is, he pardons his son. But, the lawmakers, the people that have created this pardon and the legislation that sits behind it are all educated people, by the way, yeah? So my man is also using his education to pardon his son. Everybody should relax. What the fuck? What the fuck? So, a couple of things. Listen, I've seen that Jaguar advert, right? And for those of you who don't know, Jaguar is entrenched and ingrained into the fabric of British society. It's a British brand. But Jaguar's always been quite a, like that upper echelon brand. That white upper class brand. And that's their target market. All their advertising, it's the white toff. Yeah? In those posh, made in Chelsea parents, their parents, they have it on Jaguar, Jaggy. I'm such an idiot. But listen, When I was looking for a car, of all the cars I was considering, I never considered Jaguar. It's not, see, Jaguar is one of those brands that's never appealed to me because they don't market to me. They don't want me. Do you understand? They don't want us. They don't want us to use their brand. It's like Tommy Hilfiger. He done say, allegedly, he doesn't want black people wearing his brand. Tommy Hilfiger, your brand is shit anyway. But the point is, there are certain brands that make it clear who their target market is and the demographic in which they're trying to attract. Do you understand? Very short-sighted, very limited in their thought process, but that's what they do. And Jaguar is the same. It's kind of like the non-verbal communication through advertising, but communicating through marketing. They don't. So you can imagine everybody's shock, horror, and surprise when Jaguar comes out with this woke advertising campaign. And you know what pissed me off? At the forefront of this woke marketing was a black man. I think he was a black man anyway. And in my head, I'm like, why is it when you are virtual signaling, you use black people for this woke agenda, but you use black people as a sacrificial lamb, and it is violent. It is violent. It's aggressive and it's violent, and it makes black people a target for this woke agenda. So everyone was in uproar. Like PR companies were like, what the fuck? Like marketing, car companies, enthusiasts were like, what the fuck is this? And I've watched this advertising. And do you know the bit that confused me and confused many? They were doing this woke advertising campaign for Jaguar, but there was no Jaguar car featured in the advertising campaign. So I'm sitting there thinking, if I didn't know this was Jaguar, babes, I'd be thinking that this is like a fashion campaign for the woke agenda, babes. You know, all that clothes neutral type woke. Yeah, I'd be thinking it was that because I was like, what the fuck? So I think this was number one. They need to like sack off their whoever created the advertising campaign. They need to sack the PR company because they tried to then push it on us. And also I think Jaguar, your time is up, because I feel like this was your last ditch attempt to attract a younger generation through the woke agenda, which tells me that you're not tapping in to what the people then want. They've gone all electric in terms of their cars, the electric vehicles. I didn't see that, babes. There was no car. And no offense, but if I wanted to get an electric car, I would not be thinking about Jaguar. I mean, listen, let me tell you. I need to find the statistics. I'll probably do it in an episode about the spending power of the black community. We have immense spending power. These people could have found a way to inject black excellence into their brand. And one thing is, you know, the community that is the white community, you know, they do, what do you call it? What's it? Discrimination Olympics. You know that one there? So you know what they would have done? They would have also injected themselves into the excellence of black excellence of a campaign by Jaguar targeting our demographic. And what would have happened would have been, they would have rebranded, and they would have done it in a way that not only was cool, but was inclusive, but directed at a black community. Because what happens is, if it's directed to us, everybody wants to be included. Our spending power is great and is loud. But the thing is, y'all don't respect the black community. So Jaguar, I think you're not seeing the numbers other car companies are seeing in terms of sales. I feel like, you know, I get that you've kind of revamped your logo, revamped that Jaguar, but it's not giving luxury. It's given desperate, and it's given an agenda that is so woke it became out of touch with what your brand is. If you have a marketing campaign and the actual thing you're marketing isn't in the campaign, isn't that like marketing 101? Like, what the fuck is that? So y'all go ahead, go ahead and go and watch that. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. Go and watch that marketing campaign for Jaguar. It's weird. It's just weird. You know what? I was like, is this Victoria's Secret? Is this London Fashion Week, New York Fashion? What the fuck is this? And it was just way too bright. He has the direct experience, being pregnant, being a mum, and working for Goldman Sachs. And whilst some people be like, oh, I don't know if I want to read that because it's corporate. I told you, the podcast is not just for people in the corporate world, but in the working world. And don't limit yourself from accessing certain things because you think you're not in, your career isn't going in that direction, or you're not from kind of that, I can't remember my words. You don't work in that sector. I feel like you can learn from every and any situation. So I definitely recommend that book. And remember, my book of all time still stands and remains. Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is like one of my top 10 books of all time. And Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. But for the purposes of kind of what we're talking about here, go ahead and download Bully Market. So I don't know if you have recently read some of the headlines, or I think it was in the Times. An ex-Goldman Sachs VP in compliance in London, John Reeves, was dismissed from Goldman Sachs, and he brought a claim for sex discrimination and other things, but for sex discrimination. And I just want to kind of give you a synopsis of kind of what's happened here. So John Reeves, VP Compliance, Goldman Sachs in London. So what had happened is he was dismissed, right? And he had his second child in 2021, and he informed his bosses that he planned to take 6 months paternity leave, basically from November 2021 to May 2022. So in March 2022, his name was put forward for redundancy after Goldman Sachs bosses had identified the bottom 2% of employees, in which John Reeves was identified as one of the bottom 2.5%. So in May, shortly before his paternity leave was due to end, Mr. Reeves was informed that he had been placed at risk of redundancy. So he was consequently, I can't even pronounce the word, but he was consequently placed on gardening leave before he was dismissed in September 2022. So shortly before his termination, he raised a grievance complaint, and one of the directors was actually recorded as saying that he was kind of lazy. And he gave an example of a really urgent issue had broken out at the bank at Goldman Sachs. And basically he'd seen all the senior individuals get called up to help. So his manager or director sent Mr. Reeves an email, and he said, "Need to talk, are you available?" But Mr. Reeves wasn't checking his emails because he was actually on annual leave at the time. It was during a bank holiday. I think it was the August bank holiday. So basically after that bank holiday, obviously whatever the issue was resolved. But after the bank holiday, he returned to work, and it was repeatedly raised. And his director was basically saying it's a missed opportunity. And one manager was branding it as a negative soundbite, the fact that he was unable, whilst on leave for bank holiday, to actually respond to the email and basically, get stuck in and work during his bank holiday. So then obviously what transpired is, he then went on to have a second child, taking paternity leave. He was effectively, selected for redundancy, and he was dismissed. However, when he brought a claim in the employment tribunal, the judgment was that there was no attempt to actually carry out a fair and just process when they placed him or selected him for redundancy. The tribunal went on to say it was not clear whether he was dealt with in an objective basis. However, the evidence basically said that he was not. And the employment tribunal found that Mr. Reeves was discriminated against on the basis of sex discrimination when he was dismissed. And actually, he will be compensated, and they're going to discuss compensation next year. So one of the reasons why this was raised was because one of the reasons I've raised it is after he had his second child, and he approached his bosses and said, you know what, I want to have more of a work-life balance. And his director said to him, well, you're a grown man, so you need to sort it out. Like what the hell, you figure it out. And the fact that then, you see, the question is, if he was a woman, would they have treated him like that? And the answer is probably yes, especially if you listen to that book, Bully Market. But I have an alternative view to consider here for a second. Clearly, he was discriminated against because of his sex. I understand the judgment. I've read the judgment. It makes perfect sense to me. But this is Goldman Sachs. I've worked at Goldman Sachs. I don't know how it is now, but I know that when I was there, it was a very toxic environment. People would outwardly say, I hope you're not planning to have children because you wouldn't be doing that in this job and be successful at the same time. I definitely think that Goldman Sachs, and don't get me wrong, I know people who work there who will tell you that they love working there. I know 2 people who are still there and they love it. And I know people who aspire to work there. And I'm not saying it's all bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying toxic masculinity. I'm saying a discrimination on the basis of sex. I'm saying limiting mindset. I'm saying women not being afforded the opportunity to have a career and be a working mum without being made to feel like you have to make a choice or being overlooked for promotion. And it's really difficult to prove. You have to really be on it and hold, them accountable. But the problem is you're dealing with directors who are, on 6 figures, over and above 6 figures, working in a very high intensity industry and feel as though the rules don't apply to them. And it wasn't until I listened to the audiobook Bully Market that I realized how much trauma I have associated with Goldman Sachs that I have never kind of worked on or discussed. I don't actually talk about my time at Goldman, even privately. I don't, because it was laced with a lot of trauma. And I think as a young woman in the world of work, trying to navigate and figure my way through, I don't think Goldman Sachs was a healthy space for me to be in, especially because I'd already moved out of home. So it wasn't like I had the opportunity to kind of like decompress at home and fully kind of explain what my experiences were and then be told, actually, it's in an unhealthy place to work. I think it got to a point where I became so sick just out of worry, out of anxiety, and just feeling that I could never, ever catch up or fit in. And then when I changed to fit in, I just didn't feel like me anymore, and I couldn't relate to these people. Like, we didn't come from the same place. Like, and I'm not saying we had to, I'm just saying that I couldn't relate at spending £200-300 on food, and that would be just lunch. I can't relate. And the one time I remember, I'd gone in and I was in the office, and I had these flat loafers on, and I got into the lift, and the way this woman looked at me, like I was a piece of shit. And she looked at my shoes and she started giggling. I kid you not, the next day, I went to Louboutin and I bought a pair of Louboutin heels. I almost lost my teeth many times walking in those heels. The strain on my ankle, this is why I feel I have early onset of arthritis, because my ankle has never forgiven me for those Louboutins. Honestly, imagine having Louboutins and having diarrhea at the same time. I wanted to die. I said, if I walk left now, my nyash will just open and pour out. Do you know what I mean? Because them shoes stressed me out. I was stressed. Imagine feeling that you had to conform so much. You are fucking lactose intolerant. Why are you drinking a latte with whole milk? Why are you drinking all these things just to fit in? I remember as well that all of them used to congregate outside because they all smoked. So I decided I'd start smoking. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought I was going to die. My chest started to close up. I said, Toya, this is where decisions are made. in the cigarette corner. Girl, you better buy yourself a pack of cigarettes. And I remember I bought Benson and Hedges, and one of them were like, that's really strong. Because me, I didn't even know what cigarette to be buying. Or I bought Benson and Hedges. This is where I had tonsillitis for the first time in my life. Why wouldn't I have tonsillitis? I'm smoking fucking B&H. Do you know what I do? You have to be like a seasoned smoker to, back then, I don't know how they cigarettes, you'd be a seasoned smoker to smoke Benson Hedges. And what I would do, I was smoking, I would just have it hanging there with my finger, and I feel cool in the what do you call it, the Louboutins. My ankles were pleading with me to set them free. I said, no, we have to fit in. I couldn't keep up anymore. It was depressing me, and I felt like I was never good enough. I just hated it. And I was spoken to like I was a piece of shit. I remember one time, one of the directors got so close to me, he literally was spitting on my face. And he said, look at you. Look at you. What are you going to amount to? That's what he said to me. Goldman Sachs, if I were to do a book, fucking hell. I've seen a lot though. I'm telling you, this is why I am the way I am. I promise you, especially in the world of work. This is why I am the way I am. This is why I'm so like determined. There's many reasons, but I've seen what not being who I am does, and it's soul destroying. And I remember leaving, and so I'd handed in my notice, and they made my life hell. So I think it was like 2 weeks because I had holidays. So it would have been 4 weeks, but I had holidays. So I had to just physically be in for 2 weeks. So after like the first week, I was like, I don't think I even I did the full week. I think I did up until Thursday, and I was like, I can't do this. I just didn't turn up, and no one asked for me, no one called me, no one checked, nothing. I still got paid though, because you've made it clear that you're not going to put me on garden leave. Fine. I'm not senior enough for that. You don't want me here. So you're going to have to pay me for the week I don't do. Of course you are. What the fuck? You've made it untenable for me to be here. So, and I do you know what? I remember being at Goldman Sachs. I swear, I kid you not. I was so ignorant. Listen, I'm from Tottenham. Like, Goldman Sachs was like a dream. Like, do you know what I mean? I remember there was one time we went for after work drinks, right? And I had this one friend, right? They were brothers, but one of them I got on really well with, and he was just buzzing, like excited, happy. But then like the next day, he was just so low. I just couldn't work it out. And I just remember going into the toilets, right? And he comes stumbling out the toilets, and he kept rubbing his nose. And I was like, oh, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm all right. I just think I'm coming down with something. And then he had this little powder thing, so I thought it was just snot, like drying. The snot was drying. I didn't know. I now believe that was cocaine. Cocaine. I think he was snorting drugs in the toilet. I do. But in that moment, I didn't know that. I was really ignorant. You see, no one taught me. No one told me. No one told me the possibilities. Like, no one told me that world I was entering. I didn't know. And to be honest, I really thank God for the grounding of how I grew up, because I can see how people could get lost in that sauce. It's intoxicating, feeling that you're being accepted in a space where probably you never thought you would be in, number one. Or just feeling like you belong, wanting to keep up with the Joneses, being drunk off the money, because they pay their staff well. They do. I don't know now, but I'm sure they do even more now. But even the interns were getting paid real good money. So even remember that program Industry? Yeah, it's giving Goldman Sachs vibes, but not as bad. Goldman Sachs was worse than that. Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, definitely Goldman Sachs. So yeah, I definitely recommend Bully Market. If you do get a chance to look at the case of John Reeves, who is the former VP in compliance in London at Goldman Sachs, definitely go and have a look. And I think I found it quite interesting as well, because I don't think we hear a lot of sex discrimination cases from men, especially to do with paternity. We don't hear a lot of it. And the irony is Goldman Sachs could have settled outside of court, but I think they're so fucking arrogant that they're like, no, we can afford the best lawyers, let's go. And now you're going to not only pay your lawyer fees, you're going to pay his plus compensation. Fucking stupid, innit? I need help with something. I'm a millennial, by the way. I was born in 1984. And I grew up, so I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. I definitely embody the 90s. Like, what a year to be alive, okay? Like, I embrace that. Like, everything about, like, kind of my style and kind of, like, things I like. It's very 90s inspired. It was a time, honey. I grew up in the era of listening to Missy Elliott, Busta Rhymes, Aaliyah. The list goes on and on and on, darling. But equally as well, I feel very blessed because I have, like, my sister-in-law who keeps me on vibes, keeps me on vibes, tell me what happened in this social media space, tell me what happens, like, in the content creator space, because me, I don't know, girl. But I'm going to need y'all to help me out, okay? Because I know I'm some of you lot's aunties, innit? I'm a cool aunt, by the way. I'm a cool mum, cool aunt. I'm the cool aunt that, like, still, like, dresses like a 90s vibe. But when I need help with something, I'm going to ask y'all, what is a network professional? Please. What is a network professional? I'm going to need you. Can you write in hello@toytalks.com? What is a network professional? Because I need to know. I'm going to give grace because you know what? I know that Charlemagne has Donkey of the Day. And I don't want to have to do that on the podcast because I don't think that's nice. Okay? I don't. But either I'm the donkey for not knowing what a network professional is, or, anyway, let me be nice. I'm gonna be a good girl, 'cause Santa's coming to town. Anyway, excuse me. Can we talk about Annie Dreyer for a second? Let's talk about Annie Dreyer. Like, let's talk about her. So, it's a bit messy, but we have to learn. We also listen and we don't judge. We learn and we do better. You understand? Okay. So all this mess that happened with Annie Dreyer on social media, I'm not going to get into this. If you know, you know. And if you don't, go on X, formerly known as Twitter. But Annie Dreyer then comes out with a video. So the girl in question that she kind of drags the Annie Dreyer for filth on X. And then Annie Dreyer decides that she is going to record 2 videos, roughly an hour and a half each. It's 3 fucking hours. Absolutely fucking not. Google, you need to buy TikTok, by the way, yeah? Because I don't look for things on Google. I'll look on TikTok. I only use Google Maps when I'm on my feet. I don't even use Google Maps driving. I use Waze now because Google Maps, y'all need to do some system updates, okay? But I'm just gonna put Google, I'm putting you on game. I think you need to buy TikTok because TikTok is also being used like a search engine in the same way, and TikTok is vibes. TikTok is, it's short, snappy, boom, 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 boom. So what did I do? I took my ass to TikTok. I said, TikTok, what's happening, Annie Dreyer? I need it short form. YouTube is the long blood clot form. I need a short fucking form, okay? I've got dyslexia and undiagnosed ADHD. I'm not sitting there an hour and a half. What the fuck? Look, some of my best programs that I'm currently watching is not an hour and a half. Annie Dreyer, what the fuck is this? I'm going to really say this. Annie Dreyer is a content creator in terms of her creativity. She's fantastic. She's an amazing editor. I swear to God, if there was an award for the queen of vlogs, it would be Annie Dreyer. She knows how to vlog. Whether the content is shit or not is irrelevant. It's the creativity for me. That's a natural born talent right there. She could work for some of these creative marketing companies, and she'd do really well. Even advising companies on marketing, I think she'd be fucking amazing. Her editing skills, I'm so she's fantastic. She puts my editing to fucking shame. I'm elementary in comparison. She's amazing. But I think the problem, and this is just my opinion, right? And I'm not saying this any other way than us to learn and be better, because you have to learn and grow. You don't need to make the same mistakes to learn a lesson, right? Annie Dreyer really puzzles me because I'm realizing that her delusion, she's delusional. And I shared this on Instagram, and I'm going to kind of say it here in short form. I really hope that this episode is not an hour and a half, by the way. Because it doesn't need to be. And if it is, I'm sorry. But we have a whole year to make up for her. So it's fine. But I think she's delusional. And I think she believes in her delusions. And I genuinely think that Annie Drea is being disingenuous to herself, to the people that follow her, to people that watch her. Because I genuinely believe that she has made some crazy life decisions that have not made sense. And I think her inability to take accountability is because she just doesn't know how to. We have so many broken children masquerading as adults. And what happens? That adult mask slips and you regress back into the child you were of when the trauma happened in your life. And as an adult, we have a duty to do the work. Especially Black African women, firstborn daughters, for example, we have to do the work. You've got to do the work. There is some untreated traumas that we're walking around with that's quite heavy. And the reason I say you have to do the work is especially if you want to be a mother. There's so many things that we have to unlearn. And we talk about, generational, but don't you know that you become complicit in generational trauma when you don't get the help to unlearn certain things so that you don't pass it on to future generations? You have a duty to your generation to eliminate that generational trauma. I genuinely believe that Annie Drea has never had the example of what healthy relationships look like. I don't think Annie Drea has had the example of accountability. I don't think she's seen it. So, for example, if you're raised in a household where your parents never apologize or admit when they've done something wrong, you are going to grow with that. So people who are proud to say, I never apologize, that is the most stupid thing I've ever heard. Oh, I never apologize. I don't. I find it so... You can find it hard to apologize. I never apologize. It's almost like the greatest mountain to climb to get me to apologize. Then you must be really special. Fuck you. Fuck off. Fuck you. Your inability to apologize is your inability to take accountability for your actions, which tells me you have untreated trauma. Her story of network professional, Annie, if you're listening to this, you will disagree, you will hate me. Don't even try to take me to social media, girl, because my mouth is dirty. Okay, girl. I'm saying this more so because I'm a mother just like you. And as a mother, I personally have a view that I will never, ever, ever, I would have never, ever had a child until I did the work. Because I can't do the work when I have the child there. Because what will be happening is the child will be triggering me. So for me, in order to be responsible as an adult and as a mother, I wanted to do the work. There are so many things that I've had to work through, trauma, unlearn things that are not healthy, learn how to be a mother, and start doing the work of how to mother an adult child too, and understand that I have to keep checking in and making sure that I'm not kind of allowing that generational trauma to pass on to the next generation. I think that Annie Drea, the worst part of it is the girl that she cussed out and dragged out an ex, and then the girl come back with receipts. She came receipts, emails, screenshots, receipts, emails, voice notes. The girl came with it all. And Annie Drea, you know what you should have done? You should have said nothing. You shouldn't have said anything. You should just let it just fall. Because what's happened now is your inability to take accountability, your insincerity, your disingenuousness, I think has people dragging you in those comments. The comments that were left underneath this video, I had to stop because I was like, girl, she's going to see these comments. How can you sit on a video and say, I didn't want to tell the nurses or midwife who I was. Who are you, girl? But this is that delusion where you think that you are somebody that you are not. You're not. If people say, "Oh, she's not Beyonce," but it's not about being Beyonce. It's about acknowledging that you've made really bad decisions and you're now paying the price for those decisions. It's about saying, do you know, I would have. She could have done a Resta Tessa type thing and say, "Listen, look, don't do what I did. Look what I've done. Look at how I have to pick up the pieces." You could have made money out of it. You could have, because you're at that point now where you're like, actually, let me make this money from my experiences, because goddamn, you've done a whole fucking video, these 2 videos. You should have done a Resta Tessa thing and just been honest. You know, one thing I've realised, people appreciate honesty. They may not like it, they may not want it, but people will appreciate and respect it. You don't have to like me. I don't give a fuck. You're going to respect me 100% because I'm just going to be who I am. I don't care. You can't shame me because I'm just going to come here and tell you the truth. But the most important thing, I believe, is just being true to yourself. Let me tell you something. Some of these content creators are piss poor. Maybe you don't know. Dogging on the 9 to 5. Don't get it twisted. 9 to 5s are not for everyone. Listen, when I was doing my African entertainment TV presenting, I remember doing an interview saying 9 to 5 isn't for me. And it wasn't. I was living my free-spirited life. I was traveling up and down Nigeria. I was doing red carpets. I was on Ben TV. I was on Big Brother. I was doing the damn thing. 9 to 5. Why would I be considering a 9 to 5 when I'm trying to make it in Nigeria? I wasn't interested. But you better believe that I had my education sorted behind me, everything, in case I had to fall back on it. And that 9 to 5 would have come in very handy. Look at it is now. Handy, sandy. But the problem is, I feel like a lot of these content creators are creating this illusion and I can't keep up with the illusion. They are misspending and they are put themselves in a situation where they don't even have good contracts. So they are creating a life and they're misspending. Some of them are living from credit to Klarna. Yes, credit to Klarna to ClearPay. A lot of them. Some of them haven't been paid for 2 to 3 years for campaigns that they've done. And they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And they lack the ability to be honest. And this is why some of them cannot and will not. They will categorically refuse to take a 9 to 5. They won't do it. They said, well, listen, let me tell you something. That's not called hustling. That's stupidity. Stupidity. You need yourself some humility. I just made that up. But do you understand? You got to learn from this. Because I feel like a lot of us, we buy into the fantasy that these people have created. And what happens is, because we buy into it, they feel they have to keep it going. Listen, I've come on this podcast. I've told you the truth. In my 20s, I was on benefits for a good 6 months. It felt like a year. It was 6 months. I was on benefits. I had to go to the job centre. I went to the one in Wood Green and then I was continuously going. Actually, no. When I was living in Tottenham, I was in the one in Tottenham. And I moved. I had to go to the one in Wood Green and then I landed at the one in Palmer's Green. It was humiliating, I can't lie, because the security guards made it uncomfortable for me. I'm speaking to someone who's telling me you're aiming too high in terms of jobs and I'm going to need you to come on a course to do your CV. I'm like, sorry, ma'am? Sorry? Hello? I have a whole law degree, darling. I may not be in a job right now, but I did not do the law degree so that I'll be looking for a job. You're now telling me. What are you telling me? No. Telling me, oh, I don't think you should apply for that job. I think you need to go data entry. I don't want to do data entry. But you need a job. Okay, fine. No one cares about your experience. One woman told me. You need to get a job and get off these benefits. Otherwise, I'm going to stop your benefits. If you don't come in to learn, they had a skills course. Learn how to use Microsoft Word. I said, I know how to use Microsoft Word. If you don't come in, we're going to stop your benefits. Do you know how humiliating that was? I remember one time I came into the job centre. It was like I was wearing my Sunday best just so that I could prove to them that I'm not like everyone else. I genuinely want to get off benefits. Like some of these people, they want to stay on these benefits. It's not me. The way they spoke to me like I was a piece of shit. Nobody told me the next time to come in trainers and a jumper that was barely washed. I said, yeah. The point I'm making here is this. The path to success is never smooth. There is sacrifices. I've been through a lot. But there's something that my dad always used to say. He says, if you forget where you have come from, you will go back there. You need to be humbled by your journey. And part of that humility is being honest about what that journey is and accepting that, you know what? Like, it didn't work out. Listen, some of you remember I was doing content creation? Yeah. I had decided as well that I was going to be a full-time content creator. And then the money ran out. I said, fuck it. I have to. This is not working out. I said, this is not working. The numbers are not. I remember one video, 200. I was like, I would write to companies saying, you need to sponsor me. Pay me. I'll work. Yeah. Because I wanted to be a content creator so badly. There was at one point I wanted to, it was in my 20s. A lot of things happened in my 20s, man. Fucking hell. Yeah. But can you see, link it back. Go to a previous, we talk in tabs on this podcast, by the way. Link it back to the earlier tab, education, foundation, backup plan. So when Annie Joy is talking about network professionals, what she's really talking about is it universal credit? Job center? Say it out. Say it. People, listen, the only people that are going to look down on you are the ones that were never your fans to begin with. They weren't a fan of you. They didn't like you. And actually, her honesty will inspire people. Listen, I grew up on a council estate. I'm not ashamed of it. Why should I be? It's made me who I am. I'm proud to be a babe from Tottenham. Listen, some of the finest creators, some of the most successful people are from Tottenham. Read all about it. But the point here is this. And as much we can sit here and scrutinize the videos, scrutinize what happened, whatever. But I think Annie Joy is an example of when you're not honest with yourself. You be honest with yourself. If you're in a career that you hate, be honest with yourself. Think about, how can I pivot? Do I have to start again? And be open and willing to start again. This is why I talk on this podcast about picking professions, qualifications where you're able to pivot and move. I have a friend, right? She picked a profession. She can't move. Social worker. I have quite a few friends that are social workers. A few of them, they like their job. Some of them hate their job. And one of my friends was like, Toya, I'm pigeonholed and I can't fucking get out. And I felt so sorry for her. I was like, there must be something you can do within social work. Come on, let's use your skills. You've got this. And now she's finding how to pivot in the social worker sphere, but not on the front line. She don't want to be on the front line. I've got another friend. She was like, I don't want to be social worker no more. She did her Prince 2. She's now a project manager. She's contracting. Yep, we set up that limited company, honey. She's contracting. She's a project manager. She was a social worker for 15 years. She said to me, Toya, if I had known this, I would have done my Prince 2 ages ago. And at least I would have done it alongside or just after doing social work. But I would have had it there ready, waiting. And then just topped up on my knowledge as the years gone on. So that I was able... You need to pick subjects, professions. You need to pick things that give you the ability to change and amend and move. You need flexibility. Flexibility gives you options. Options give you choices. Choices give you freedom. Is the point that we're making here. So, please, network professionals, let us understand what we're doing here. Teaching, guiding, educating Black women how to navigate the world of work safely and therefore highlighting the path of our success. And, I think the saddest thing about what makes me sad about Annie Joy, honestly, is I don't actually think she's got people around her that can tell her the truth. Because a real friend would tell her to take those videos down within the hour that she put them up. A real friend would have said, you haven't done the work, but you need to start now. A real friend will say, listen, when a man says he doesn't want to have a baby with you and you decide that you want to have this baby, yeah, you've decided you want to have this baby, he doesn't want anything to do with it. It will fucking hurt. It is a rejection that you will have to work through. And what you cannot do is blame other people for your choices. You decided because you wanted to. this content creation, keeping up with the Joneses, please, let us learn. Let us grow. We listen, we don't judge, we observe, we learn, and we do better. So, being a permanent member of staff, having been a contractor for slightly just over 7 years, I think it was 7 years and a few months, whatever, it's been challenging because I'm committing in a way that I've not done in a really, really long time. In fact, I think I find being perm a bit triggering because the whole reason I was contracting, that I went contracting, is because I was undervalued. I wasn't growing in the role I was in. I was overlooked for senior positions and I was stagnant in my career. I was just at a point where I was like, I want to make money. I want to make more money and I want to climb up the career ladder quicker. And I think contracting did that, especially if you're contracting in the right organizations, right places, you're doing things that are advancing your career. I will still say it was probably the most enriching, vital thing in my career to be a contractor. I recommend it to everyone and anyone who is career-minded, focused, wants to grow and make money and climb up the career ladder, because part of making money is climbing up the career ladder to make more money, right? Albeit that when you get to a certain salary bracket, that's another episode, don't worry, that's coming January. We're gonna fucking talk because I'm fucking tired of this fucking tax system here in the UK. Like, after you earn a certain amount, honestly, it's not tax efficient to be in this country anymore. Like, you get to a point you're like, right, I'm done. The erasure of the middle class is real. It's an episode. There's so much to talk about. But I say all this to say, I'm happy I made the decision to be perm. I think being a career mum, a career woman, and a mum and a career mum, I just definitely feel like I laid enough foundations to be able to be where I am, and I'm content with where I am in my career, where my trajectory, where I'm going, where my focuses are, my objectives are, and I'm just gonna keep going, right? Keep growing and make as much money as possible in the process. But I feel like when you're a contractor, it's different. The dynamic is different. You're less invested, you're more delivery mode. You deliver and go, really. You don't have to develop relationships. You just have to, there's superficial relationships to get you to deliver what you need to and for you to get out, right? When you're a perm, you do have to kind of work on fostering relationships. But I always say I'm using my contractor mindset in terms of certain things that I learned as a contractor, as a perm. I give enough, and I'm navigating, and I'm telling you right now, like, I'm so grateful that I understand how to navigate the world of work, because honestly, we're slaying lions, tigers, and motherfucking bears in these workplaces. I think something that I always am surprised about is white privilege. It always surprises me because white privilege is so fucking arrogant. It is. And underneath that white privilege, it's nothing more than privilege. It's not based on anything other than the colour of someone's skin. That's mad. Do you know how crazy that is? That's crazy. So I'm working with somebody who works in finance, right? So I don't know a lot of your setups in your organisation. Typically in a consultancy, delivering a project, you have a finance business partner, you could have a director of the entire project, you can have a commercial contract manager who manages all the commercials, all the contracts, the deliverables, the KPIs, the subcontractors, all the contractual know-how and everything, right? That's what I do. And you could have like the technical leads, technical director. There's all these different roles. And for me, I'm interfacing with all these stakeholders. They're all my internal stakeholders. I'm working with an internal stakeholder he's actually a contractor and he's a financial business partner. And, long story short, he's shit at his job. I've never worked with a finance business partner and finance is bad. Finance is usually on top of them numbers. They're on top of their game. Typically with my role, It depends if if it's like a contract, right? Like a contract variation, or I'm renegotiating contractual terms, or whatever the case is. Finance is always involved because there's always a cost for deliverable, or we've done a procurement exercise and we're awarding a contract, and the value of that contract, and when you're going through some form of governance approval, you need a finance business partner to approve the cost and confirm whatever the cost association, right, or whatever they do their projections and whatever they do. And this particular finance business partner, we're going to call him Stuart. He's a middle-aged white man. Nothing special about him other than the fact that he's landed here, and he's the finance business partner in consulting for this project effectively. So this white man, I will go to him to sign off on financials, and he just avoids signing off on anything. You're the motherfucking finance business partner, sir. If this is going to go through a governance process, I can say, oh, has finance signed? And I need to be fucking saying yes. You're not going to be my bottleneck. But he continuously positions himself as my bottleneck. He constantly undermines me. His microaggressions are crazy. Like the other day, he asked me what my qualifications were. Like, how did you get into this profession? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what are your qualifications? And I told him, and his mouth was open. I said, well, haven't you done that, ACCA accounting? He was like, yeah, but I did it a long time ago. Okay, I don't give a fuck if you did it a long time ago. Like, we're all qualified to be here, motherfucker. So why are you asking me that? It was almost like he was shocked at how educated I was, if I'm honest. And one thing with me is I'm never going to lie, especially to a white man that asks me about my education. I'm going to tell you everything. Because you had access to. In fact, you had more access than me. You chose not to. You chose the path you chose. I'm not going to apologize for my achievements, because I used to do that a lot. Like, don't say certain things, or don't tell, like, oh, where have you worked before? I used to not tell people I worked at Goldman Sachs, because it was like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm being arrogant, or I think, motherfucker, I worked there. I got in, honey. No privilege. Anyway, I call Stuart the disruptor, because he disrupts the flow of progress in the project. So recently I had to put him in his place. I know he's a contractor because, number one, he told me, but it's genuinely known, and he goes around telling everybody anyway. So I had redlined a contract, and I sent it out to all my internal stakeholders, and I'd ask specific questions relating to what that stakeholder does. So I don't need you to do a legal review, because that's what I'm there for. Thank you. I just need you to do the review. So if a technical lead, look at the technical stuff, look at the statement of work. I don't need you to look at the contract. Look at the statement, own it. So then he started redlining my contract. And he started raising certain things in the red line that makes no sense. He was raising it because he doesn't actually know or have any legal experience. So what I then decided to do is I responded in the comments. Because one thing with me is I never discount what people say, even if you're overstepping, because maybe there's something for me to learn. Maybe I've missed something. Maybe I'm so in the weeds that I don't know. So I'm always open. But I already know that this man is a disruptor. This man will message me. Like, my Teams is on Don't Disturb, right? And he will send me a message, or I'm busy, and he'll say, are you available for a call? This is persistent, consistent. This has been going on since April. Or we'll be in a meeting, and the director for this particular project will be in the meeting asking me a question, and then Stuart will then try to like cross-examine me. And one time he tried it, and I was like, Stuart, I don't need you to cross-examine me, because I've actually answered the question already. And actually, if you read the documentation, you will see in clause 2.4 where this has been addressed. That's how I deal with him now. So when he tries to cross-examine me, then I disgrace him by demonstrating that he's not even read the document in which he's trying to cross-examine me about. Because that's the only language this man understands. I try the diplomatic approach. It doesn't work, because in his mind, who is this black woman that has so much respect from the senior members of staff? I'm going to undermine her so that I can undermine her credibility. That's what he's doing. Because if he was really about the project and delivering and really supportive, he would not question and put me on the spot in front of all these senior leaders. But when we're talking one-to-one, he won't. I remember we had a meeting an hour before we had a project meeting. He didn't raise anything to me when we had a meeting because I've put in bi-weekly meetings with him. Yeah, because as a finance business partner, I'm used to doing that. But I realized with him, no, it's once every quarter I'm going to meet with him because he's annoying. He's like a little flea. Then 2 hours later, an hour and a half later, so we had the project call, I think an hour and a half, 2 hours later. I want to say 2 hours. I think it was 2 hours later. And he raised all this stuff that he never even mentioned to me how many hours before that we had a meeting. So I realized this man is a disruptor. He just wants to, he's one of those people that he will disrupt everything, but he offers no solution. So it kind of came to a head on Monday. And I had sent out some stuff. Everyone had signed off on it. And I needed him to check the numbers. And every time I asked him, can you confirm in an email these numbers? He'd go into the document and he would change the numbers. He'd redline them. I said, every time, because I've locked the document, I own the document. Every time he does that, I have to go in, accept the changes and relook the document again. And this kept going on for 2 days. And I was like, this is enough. So I got on a call with him. I says, you keep changing these numbers and everything's been signed off. Like, are you not certain about these numbers before they go to a final? Like, what's going on? Can you? And he was like, oh, he's rounding up, whatever the fuck. I says, I'm not, you own the numbers. But what I'm going to need you to do is agree on what those numbers are so I can finalize this document. So then we had a project update. And we went around the room and he was before me. So he says, oh, I'm waiting for Toya to finalize the document. She hasn't done that yet. Toya, have you finalized my numbers? Because I've been waiting for you since Monday. You know, one thing about working in white dominated industries is you better stay ready. You need to cross your T's, dot your I's, but you need to stay ready. You know what I did? Kate calls me IT support. I have 3 screens. In fact, I have 4. No. I have 5 screens. I have my eyes, I have my glasses, I've got the 2 monitors and my laptop. Don't fuck with me, motherfucker. I shared my screen. I said, Stuart, I have a folder called Stuart. I said, Stuart, these are all the iterations since I put it in the share folder. All your changes, there's 15 changes you've made in the last 48 hours. So this tells me that you're not sure of the numbers. It tells me that you're not comfortable with the numbers, and it tells me that you haven't decided what those numbers are. So are you now saying that you can confirm the numbers so that I can put this through to the client and get this approved and signed? Because what I don't want you to do is erode the leverage of the relationship with the client. We're delivering this project and the numbers need to be, and you own the numbers. So if everybody else has signed off, but you haven't signed off, I can't send this document. So are you confirming these numbers? And I said, the latest version, and I give him the latest version. He said, yes. I said, well, while we're all on the call, can you send me an email? He goes, oh yeah, I'll do it after the call. I said, no, while we are on the call, can you send me an email to confirm that you have accepted these numbers? This is the iteration. And I sent it in the chat. You know, sometimes you have to shame the devil because the devil is mischievous and the devil is stupid. Do you know, since that day, that was Monday, this man don't fuck with me no more. I am nice, I'm pleasant until I'm not. And it doesn't go over my head how easy it is for some of these white men to use their white privilege, their masculinity to oppress. And they never think, or they never expect us to be ready. Because they think they're the smartest person in the room. And whilst I'm not the smartest person in the room, I'm equally not the most stupid person in the room. I will cover my back always. No one has my back like me. I'm a band of one. I'm one of one. I'm not looking for anyone to have my back. And the reality is, people will not have your back, even when the truth is glaring them in the face. I mean, after all, this was happening. Everyone knew what the status was, but no one was advocating for me. No one was saying, actually, no, I've seen all the Chasers toys sent. I've been on copy. No one. He waited until the director of the project was on the call to then put me on the spot. Like, I'm the one delaying. Motherfucker, I stay ready. I have a screen. I have a phone. When I shared the screen, I deliberately shared the screen so he could see that I had a folder for him. Don't play with me. You want to do your microaggressions? Me too. Let me do mine. I will meet you where you are. You want to die on the hill? I'll meet you on the hill. I've worked far too hard in my career to allow anybody to think that they can crush my self-esteem, discredit me, or question my integrity. It's not motherfucking happening. And this is where we've got to get to. As Black women, we've got to get to a space and a point where we trust ourselves enough that we're able to advocate for ourselves in situations where our integrity, the way we work, is being called into question. And you have to do it in the sexiest way possible. Because as I'm talking to him, I'm calm, you know. I'm calm. Because as soon as your voice becomes elevated, you're being aggressive, you're angry. No, we're not passionate. We're not passionate. We're not committed. No, that's not how they see it. They see it as if your voice becomes elevated, they're intimidated. And what I realize is they're not going to treat a Black man like that. They're going to treat us like that. They're not going to treat a white woman like that because of fragility, but they believe that Black women have we need to, it's almost like they operate from a space of, I'm not going to allow this Black woman to think that she's better than me. I'm going to show her, I'm going to teach. And it's giving slave trade vibes. It's giving colonization vibes. And I'm not having it. I don't actually care who you are. You treat me with respect, I treat you with respect. But what you're not going to do is try to discredit me in front of the director. You're mad. You're fucking crazy. So, Stuart, he now knows I've got a folder on him. Everyone on the call, there was 15 of us on the call, 15 or 16 of us on the call. Everyone saw the folder. You want to start? I will plant the seeds. Everyone's going to know that you're incapable of actually doing your job. Because what finance business partner has 15 iterations in the space of 48 hours? What the fuck is that, sir? Do you need me to buy you a calculator? Sir? Oh, hell no. So I wanted to share that with you because I feel like, number one, the further you go, the higher you go in any organization, this is what you're going to find. You need to stay ready. You need to always, and it's not being on the offensive, it's actually staying ready to be able to back yourself, being able to justify your decision making, being a safe pair of hands, obtaining those quick wins, obtaining an elevated sense of credibility in an organization. It could take years, in months, years even, but it takes moments for somebody to put the boot in, especially when we're talking about, like, someone said something to me recently and I hadn't actually processed it in the way they had said it. It's true. I am the only Black woman on the entire project. I'm the only Black woman. I'm often in meetings where I'm the only woman. And whilst I listen, I'm very well respected. I get on really well with the project team. Like, honestly, like we're consulting on a great project. Like I can't complain. But there's always one that will test you. There's no such thing as a perfect environment, a perfect way. It just doesn't exist. But this is why I say, if you understand how to navigate, you can see things rolling. And don't get me wrong, there's some things you overlook, but there's certain things that I feel like you just can't, especially when you're put on the spot. You need to get the flavor of people quickly. Your discernment has to operate quick. Because it could take years to build credibility, moments to discredit you, moments for people to doubt, oh, is this person actually? No, we're not doing that. Trigger warning. Can we just quickly talk about Jay-Z? New tab. So, Jane Doe has lodged a civil suit against Jay-Z. Legal name Sean Carter. He's allegedly accused of raping a 13-year-old girl within this lawsuit, in which she alleges that she was drugged and intoxicated, and she alleges that she was raped by Jay-Z and P. Diddy. And she accuses them of doing this after the VMA Awards in 2000. This civil suit has been lodged against Jay-Z and P. Diddy. Let's read the statement from Jay-Z. So Jay-Z's lawyer, Alex Spiro, argues that the accuser's decision to file a lawsuit under the name Jane Doe was inconsistent with the genuine effort to determine the truth or falsity of these allegations, as opposed to an effort to procure a quick, extortionate statement. Jay-Z's lawyer went on to say, respectfully, they're seeking a dismissal of the allegations or disclosure of the plaintiff's identity. He went on to say it's not consistent with justice, fairness, and the rules governing federal proceedings for the plaintiff, the accuser, and her counsel to smear the defendant, in this case, who is Jay-Z, Sean Carter, it's a good name, in ways that are calculated to feed media coverage and thus inflict maximum public relations damage, while the core fact that the plaintiff, the accuser's identity, remains wholly hidden from view. So effectively, they want the identity to be released of who is the accuser. He has a right to face his accuser. So in Jay-Z's statement, he calls the allegations idiotic, and he basically explained the conversation he said that he will now have to have with his children, Blue Ivy, who's 12, and his twins, Saya and Rumi, who are 7. My only heartbreak is for my family, he says. My wife and I will have to sit our children down, one of whom is at the age where her friends will surely see the press and ask questions about the nature of these claims and explain the cruelty and greed of people. I mourn yet another loss of innocence. Children should not have to endure such at their young age. It is unfair to have to try to explain to understand inexplainable degrees of malice meant to destroy families and human spirit, he continued. Jay-Z denounced the entire lawsuit as the work of a fraud and said his intention is to expose the lawyer representing the plaintiff. And they have asked that the judge deny the accuser, who is the plaintiff in this case, anonymity. So whilst we definitely have to see how this plays out, there is a learning lesson here. You see, Jay-Z, you have to decide, Jay-Z, like, where you stand. Silence is you're complicit in silence. We all saw the video of P. Diddy and his systematically violent abuse of Cassie at the hotel. P. Diddy and Jay-Z, I don't know their relationship status now, but they were really good friends. In fact, the annual white party was held by both of them. Jay-Z cannot distance himself from P. Diddy and say that they weren't that good of friends. They were really good friends, okay? That's what they put out to us, the public. But when the video of Cassie came out or was leaked or whatever the case may be, Jay-Z didn't say a word. He didn't denounce it. He didn't say anything. He could have easily have said, I'm really disappointed at the video that I saw and the abuse that Cassie endured. And whilst I have enjoyed a friendship with P. Diddy, I will be having a conversation with him and ensuring that he gets the help that he needs, whilst also taking accountability for his actions. He could have said that. Hold your friend accountable. Jay-Z said nothing. Diddy gets arrested. He's denied bail. Diddy stand in trial next year. Jay-Z, you can't say nothing. You can't. I feel like there's certain people that just can't say nothing. I say, Jay-Z, like, which side of history do you want to... Well, you know, you've already picked the side of history you want to be on. But are we surprised at these allegations? For me personally, I'm not. Diddy is your friend. So I'm already thinking, show me your friends. Y'all know the rest. And maybe these allegations are false. But the point of the matter is, I think what this highlights is you need to be really careful of the people you're calling friends and you're pushing out to the world. And you need to be vocal when it's required. You can't take a position that you have done in society, these white parties, these mergers and collaborations that you're doing. And I say merger and collaboration, you know what I mean? Like the fusion of your friendship and solidifying, you know, the culture. And then decide that you want to tap out of the culture when it doesn't see. It doesn't work like that. Now, 50 Cent, you know, our uncle troll extraordinaire said something really interesting. And he said, you know what? It'll be really interesting to see what happens. Because Jay-Z he's like the director, like he's one of the directors and that kind of picks who is on the Super Bowl. And he has businesses and NFL, like he what happens to all those relationships, those business relationships? What happens? Because they are truly going to be harmed by these allegations, which is probably why also Jay-Z's come out and made a statement about it. But the reality is, like, silence has not benefited you. Because now all of us are just looking at you. But the lesson here is you can't be quiet and think that precludes you. Because silence is sometimes complicit of encouraging bad behavior or extremely bad behavior. And whether you want to accept it or not, P. Diddy has been a part of the culture. And what has happened and what is transpiring is truly sad to the legacies of people connected to him. And you need to check the people that you're connected to. Are we going to talk about Young Philly? Not today, but we're going to have that conversation because I definitely, you know that I did an episode where I spoke about Young Philly and Chunks and stuff. But as things are starting to come out, like we need to talk about Young Philly. Yep. He's apparently been charged with driving recklessly whilst on bail for the allegation of rape in Australia. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that next episode. I want to thank you so much for listening. This has been a longish episode. I've enjoyed delivering it. I hope you received the messages and the themes and understood the themes of this episode. And I'm going to continue to give you great content because y'all are deserving. Y'all have been tapped in. Y'all have supported and been on this journey. And I'm really excited to be able to give you good quality content, teach, educate, share some life lessons. Make sure you send me your dilemmas. Listen, your dilemmas will be read on time. hello@toytalks.com. In the subject box, just put dilemma so we know it's a dilemma and I'll address it in the next episode. I'm wishing you all a very happy Christmas because y'all know I'm a Grinch, and a very happy new year. This will be the last episode of this year, 2024. I'll be back in January. Bigger, better, bolder, and great equipment. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow me on social media. My TikTok is Toya Washington. Instagram, Toya_Washington. Snapchat, Toya Washington, all one word. And if you want to send us your dilemmas, you will be anonymous and we'll read advice. Tell me what you're hoping to achieve, like what would be a best scenario for you so I know how to advise you or how best to advise you. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Thank you for rocking with me and thank you for continuing to be on this Toya Talks journey. I will see you in 2025, January, by the grace of Almighty God and the ancestors. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.
TOIA, let me show you how to navigate and elevate, that's what we do. Black queen, energy growing, no fantasy, just real talk. From classroom dreams to boardroom walk. Black woman power, watch it shine. Breaking barriers, redesigning time. From Tottenham roads to CEO, every step teaching what we know. Not just surviving but thriving more. Opening every closed door. Toya Talks, Toya Talks, Toya Talks. Black queens to the top and we're still going.